I am Dr. Michelle Abraham. I'm from Miami University in Oxford, Ohio. None of those things are exciting. I'm not from Miami, Florida, and I'm not from Oxford University. Sorry. But I do some, what I feel very exciting research on adolescent development. And I'm here today to talk to you about some recent findings that we have. But let me give you a little bit of background. We look at attachment relationships because they truly are invaluable relationships. They're special, they're unique, they are irreplaceable by any other relationship. And our first attachment relationship is that bond we have with our parents. And they serve a very, very important function. They help us to create an identity, so we know who we are by interacting with and bouncing information off of and getting feedback from our parents. It helps us to form that identity. It also lets us practice social functioning, so we know how to behave or how not to behave. And the final thing it does that's very, very important is it helps us to develop models of social relationships so that we know how to react with or interact with other people outside of our family environment. We use our attachment relationship with small children in two ways. One of the things we do is use our parents as a secure base so that we can go out and explore the world and have experiences that help us to develop as a person. And the second thing that we do is we use those parents as a safe haven that we can go back to when we are frightened, when we're threatened, when we need someone just to give us some reinforcement. So we're going to use our parents in that way, especially as small children. And it's very important for those parents to respond in a sensitive, consistent manner. So we want them to be reliable in their responses to us. And if we do that, if parents do that for us, we develop a secure attachment and we feel like we are loved and valued by the people that are caring for us. If we develop an insecure attachment, it's most often due to the fact that one of those components is lacking. They are not sensitive, they are not consistent, and they are not responsive to our needs. So we have something lacking. And that insecure attachment can lead to lots and lots of different problems. The pattern of our development, whether it's secure or insecure, it helps us to develop expectations. Children who develop a secure attachment have an expectation that they're going to be loved and cherished and respected and esteemed by other people because the people who care for them most tell them that's how they're to be valued. Children who develop an insecure attachment, if they're avoidant, feel like emotion is not an acceptable behavior, so they're going to avoid any type of emotional expression because they feel like they're going to be rejected. Children who develop an ambivalent relationship with their parents where they really aren't sure because that parent is very inconsistent in their responding tend to develop this expectation of, if I calm down, my parents are going to leave because I have been successfully calmed. So they tend to be that very needy type of individual. And we all have these people in our lives. It's constantly, do you love me? Do you care about me? I need you. What are you doing? They need us constantly to be reinforcing that we care about them. So we can have these basic patterns of attachment. In infancy, we are going to use that attachment relationship so that we can go out and explore the world. Physical exploration. And we can do this because our parents are immediately available to us as a secure base safe haven. But as I said, we develop an expectation of how other people are going to treat us. And if we develop a secure expectation, then as an adolescent, we can go out and explore the world even when our parents are not immediately available, because we know that if we do need them, either they will be available or someone else will, because we have this expectation that people will care for us. So having a secure attachment allows us to have more exploration of the world, better interactions, and so we go out and do what we need to do. So adolescence is my field of expertise, and our primary goal of adolescence is to continue our social development. We start this very early, and as adolescents, we're going to learn to function successfully with our peers, hopefully. And if we have a secure attachment, we tend to do that pretty well. We're also going to learn to interact with adults outside of the family, and for my study, the most important thing we're going to do is begin to learn to interact with people of the opposite gender and have romantic involvement. We can do this because there's shifts in gender restrictions in adolescence. You know, when you're in elementary school and kindergarten, boys have germs, girls are icky, we don't play with them. We stay away from them, right? Well, in adolescence, they become more interesting. And all of a sudden, we want to spend time with them. And we're seeking out interaction with them. And they tend not to be quite so icky. Now, peers help us to develop autonomy. And autonomy is our main goal in adolescence. We need to move away from our parents. We need to form our own identity and become our own individual. We can do this in a secure attachment relationship more successfully because we have this expectation of acceptance. So we go out into the world, people care about us, we can be ourselves and feel more comfortable. If we have an insecure attachment, autonomy becomes more difficult because we don't know who we are. We don't expect people to love us and care for us, so it's hard for us to go out and open ourselves up because we've been rejected or we don't know what to expect. So it's more frightening for us to go out and approach other people and try those social interactions out. In adolescence, our peers definitely function as autonomy providers. They provide us with multiple aspects in our relationships: intimacy, mutuality, reciprocity. There's a give and take in our peer relationships. We are able to use our peers to share our intimate thoughts, views, feelings, opinions outside of the family and kind of change the way we see ourselves and develop our own identity because our parents are no longer, quote unquote, running our lives, right? Now, we also have some negative components to our relationships. For example, conflict. Conflict isn't positive. We don't like to be in conflict with other people. However, in our peer relationships, that's a very good thing because it teaches us coping and give and take. So it's a positive method for us to learn how to function as we get older. Now, in a secure peer attachment, our self-esteem also becomes enhanced. Because if we have a secure peer relationship and we're telling them intimate things and they still care about us and are reciprocal and want us to be happy, then we feel like we're being valued even though we're sharing things that maybe our parents wouldn't approve of. So we're stepping out of that family shell and becoming our own individuals. So we use our peers in that way. Now, as I said, we're starting to develop this interaction with the opposite gender because of that lifting of gender boundaries. And these romantic relationships become very important in early adolescence. Research tells us that they become more important than both our parents and our peers. We tend to really value them because they're very unique new relationships for us. And insecure children will often use these romantic relationships to give themselves the intimacy and feedback that is lacking from other relationships. Now, that's going to be a problem because these children do not have a positive view of themselves. They're expecting rejection, and so they're going to do more to enhance that relationship. And of course, if they're young adolescents, we know their prefrontal lobe isn't fully developed. They don't make good decisions. They don't do the right thing. And we know that early romantic involvement can lead to lots of different problems. For example, early sexual activity, and of course, when you're in adolescence, unprotected sex often leads to pregnancy, so we have teen parents, and we have STDs, and we have lots of issues. But probably the most significant issue for an adolescent is the impact that early sexual activity has on their self-esteem. It has a tremendous negative impact. It is not good for them. We do know that secure attachment is very important because when we are securely attached, we have social and emotional development that is superior to insecure attachment. So we're functioning better socially, we are more emotionally stable, we don't need other people to give us quite so much feedback because we have higher self-esteem. We value ourselves based on our impressions rather than the impressions of others. We don't need that positive feedback. So insecure attachment, those children need more feedback from other people to let them know how they're supposed to be feeling about themselves. And we also know that relationships and autonomy are also very, very important. If you have secure attachment to your parents, you're going to develop a better autonomy. Sounds kind of contraindicated, I don't know. You know, the thing that they don't go together. I have crossed way too many time zones. You would think that if you have a secure relationship with your parents, you are going to want to spend more time with them, you're going to be more dependent on them. They're actually more willing to get away from their parents and to step outside of that, and they do well successfully when they're secure. So the problems come into play when they're insecure. And we do know that early romantic involvement can be a significant issue because this previous research by Royer, Keller, and Heydrich tells us that 70% of 8th graders felt that holding hands and kissing were acceptable behavior. 8th grade children in the States are 12, 13, maybe 14 years old. So they're very young children. And 39% of them felt that protected sex was more acceptable than those other behaviors. So it was okay to have sex as long as you were using protection. These are 13 and 14-year-old kids. So we really want to delay romantic involvement as long as possible. Sharp and Maislis came out with this great study just a few years ago. And they looked at a group of girls. And they found that mothers and fathers played a distinct role in the development of romantic relationships. The mother-child relationship predicted the age of the child at first intercourse and the number of partners, while the father predicted the quality and attachment security of romantic relationships longitudinally, which is incredible research and pretty groundbreaking, and I was kind of disappointed she got published before I did because we were doing the research at the same time, but she beat me to it. But she was only looking at girls, and I looked at girls and boys. So this suggests that mothers and fathers do indeed play a different role in the development of romantic relationships. So what did I do? I looked at a group of children. There were 143 7th and 8th graders, and I wanted to see, did the parents indeed play a different relationship to their children in that development of the romantic relationships? And was the effect the same for girls and boys? So I took these 7th and 8th graders, and I had them complete a number of questionnaires. And what I found was, let me tell you a little bit more about my subjects. There were 143 of them. There were 65% male, 35% female. It was a pretty representative sample. About half and half between the grades, and they were representative of the minority population in the state. So I was impressed with my sample. I impressed myself. And 31 of those children reported having a serious romantic relationship. And 3 of them had been in that relationship for over a year. Now, we've all had romantic relationships. When you're in a relationship for that long, we know that there's a likelihood that it's going to increase. The feelings and the contact between the individuals increases. 23 of the 31 children indicated that it was important or very important for them to have a romantic relationship. So they found it to be a significant part of their social functioning. They needed to have that relationship. And 36% of them reported that it was exclusive, while the rest reported that it was more casual or a close friendship. When we looked at the children and their attachment to their parents, we did find the similar findings to what Sharp and Maislis found. The significant part of this research is this did include boys. Almost half the population were boys. So we're finding the same thing irregardless of gender of the individual, the adolescent. Maternal attachment predicted whether or not the child would actually become involved in a romantic relationship. So more securely attached children are less likely to become romantically involved. So if they have a good relationship with their mother, they're going to put off that relationship. Paternal attachment did not predict whether or not they would get involved in the relationships, which is unusual because the maternal and paternal attachment are highly correlated. If they're securely attached to mom, they're going to be securely attached to dad. But they don't do the same thing. They provide different functions. So what is the father doing? Well, the father predicts whether or not the relationship with their romantic partner is going to be made up more of positive qualities. And in this case, they do. If they are securely attached to their father, they're going to report that that romantic relationship has more positive qualities. We didn't see a correlation between negative qualities, and I would predict that this was partially because it was self-report and they're all in love. And also because these were relatively new relationships. Only 3 had been in the relationship for longer than a year. And probably most significantly, the paternal attachment predicted the length of the romantic relationship. So these children aren't getting into a relationship and dating, having a boyfriend for a week or a month. They're staying into these relationships for a long time, which is actually good for their self-esteem. So that's a positive outcome of the relationship. So what does this positive quality correlate with? If they have positive quality in their romantic relationship, we know that they classify their relationship as being more important. It's very important. It's an exclusive relationship. They're dedicated to this person. They're not just in the relationship because they need a person with them. They're dedicated to that particular individual. In addition, they also report that it's very important to have a romantic relationship. So they need to have that. They tend to be in contact frequently. We ask them, how often do you see this person? Are you seeing them in school? Are you seeing them outside of school? And surprisingly, most of the students reported that they were actually seeing their romantic partner alone outside of school, which is surprising at this age. And the length of the relationship also correlates with positive quality, which isn't too surprising. So this does support Ofer and Maisler's previous findings, that maternal attachment predicts whether or not the children will become involved in romantic relationships. And it does break new ground. There's very little research on early adolescence. I think it's because it really kind of scares people. They want to stay away from them. That age group is kind of scary. They're very emotionally volatile, but it does tell us a lot about them. And this suggests that the paternal attachment is going to help children avoid becoming involved in what I would call less than optimal romantic relationships. We don't want our children romantically involved too early. And so having a secure attachment with your father is going to help to prevent that. So that secure attachment becomes very important. And the findings were similar regardless of gender. So it's for both boys and girls that we're seeing this association, which, as far as I can tell, hasn't been looked at before. In the future, I would like to explore what's occurring in the romantic relationships. Are they sexually active? Are they truly exclusive? As I said, I did use self-report, so I'd like to know a little bit more about that relationship. And I would also like to know more about the impact on their self-esteem, which is a study I'm doing currently. The research suggests that lower global self-esteem is correlated with being involved in a romantic relationship. We did ask them about their self-esteem. I'd like to get into it a little bit more. But the findings tell us that children who are romantically involved don't view themselves very positively. They don't see themselves as positively. So most likely they're using that romantic relationship to boost their self-esteem because there is esteem in that age group with having a romantic partner. In addition, we do know that these children had a lower score on physical appearance. So they don't see themselves as being physically attractive. They report as being unattractive. So having this romantic partner is most likely bolstering that view of themselves. It did not correlate with their peer acceptance, however. So these children are not being rejected by their peers and then turning to the other gender to have this intimate relationship. They are socially accepted by their peers. So I would like to know what is going on. Why is that romantic relationship so important to them? And that is all I have.